This is Terry Allen, Real Progress News, and it is February 18th, 2023, right? Okay. I have on my show is Brian Lantz from LaRouche Pack. He's been a long associate of Lyndon LaRouche, and maybe you could introduce yourself and give us a little of your background.
Sure. I had the economic research task force for LaRouche Pack. So my field's economics. And I've been writing and publishing and lecturing and organizing for some 50 years. And that's what brought me to your show today.
Great.
Just in the last several months, I produced a white paper on a survey of the entire U.S. economy and the requirements for reviving the U.S. economy physically. That's our focus: the physical economy, not the paper, but the productive process itself, industry, agriculture, and so forth. That's a 40-page paper, and then I just finished one on the defense industry. And the potential for that to be a reservoir for the development of rebuilding out the entire U.S. economy. So that's some of what I've been involved in with others, and so I hope that helps you a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I mean, Trump's been saying a long time his campaign slogan was "Make America Great Again." And a lot of people ask, well, when was it actually great? I mean, I guess in the 60s, we had a lot of economic development. We had the NASA's, space program under Kennedy and other things. So we want to make it really great. Well, not just a fake great.
A good parameter is that, in the mid-1950s, 1 out of 3 jobs in the non-agricultural jobs, 1 out of 3 was in manufacturing. Today it's 1 out of 12. Less than 8% of our workforce is actually engaged in manufacturing, which is why our trade deficit is over $1 trillion for this last year, and that was, and it's been growing year after year. Only under Trump, I believe it was in 2020, did the actual trade deficit go down a bit. To 840 billion in terms of the goods deficit, but we're not producing, and so now we've reached a point where we can't even produce the ammunition, the 155 millimeter artillery shells, the javelins, etc., even to resupply what we've shipped to Ukraine.
Wow.
I'm not favoring the Ukraine conflict or our involvement in it. It's completely insane, and Trump is right. We got to settle it, and he should be brought in to negotiate it, as he has offered. President Trump has offered. But nonetheless, the point is, we're so hollowed out, even though we are spending this coming year, we'll spend approximately $1 trillion coming fiscal year on so-called defense, military spending to the Department of Defense. $1 trillion. We can't produce the ammo we need simply for a regional war. So what's going on? Well, hey, the entire economy of the United States is hollowed out. That's what's going on. And that's what's got to be addressed. And that's why we have to make the United States once again a manufacturing superpower.
Well, a lot of that, a lot of the manufacturing was done. I mean, a lot of it went over to China, obviously, and other cheap labor pools, Bangladesh and places. Was that actually where some of the ammunition was being made? Because I know a lot of the uniforms and a lot of the other stuff from the military was being made in China. So why exactly are we not able to make actual bombs and bullets and whatever, the ammunition that you're talking about?
Because we financialized military spending. The Pentagon budget is financialized as well. We didn't outsource it to China or Bangladesh or whatever, but we treated it like we treated the domestic economy. Think of COVID, the COVID period. Suddenly we couldn't produce. And then when we tried to turn it on again, we couldn't turn it on, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, everything, we had back orders on everything and supply chain issues. So
Yeah,
Oh.
companies operate on so-called lean manufacturing principles. They operate on the basis of that means basically zero inventory, um, minimizing employment. You know, you don't want to have extra employees hanging around when there's downtime, etc. In the military, they you know, if you're not ordering, if we don't need a certain kind of ammunition right now, well, the Pentagon just shuts down that order. You know, that the order ends.
Yeah.
The company that's producing that ammunition has one contract. It's to the Department of Defense. So that company shuts down the production of that ammunition, shuts down that supply line, production line. And so, and then where the employees go home, they go find other jobs, etc. And so then you turn around and say, hey, we need some more ammunition. Hey, well, the company may have gone out of existence. The employees aren't there. And then when you try to double it or whatever, the ammunition, well, you know, you don't have the wherewithal. It's going to take you 2 or 3 years to build a plant. Anyway, I hope that gives you some idea.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, it's the ideal of the printing industry, and it's the same thing. I get calls for paper, for instance, and they need it tomorrow, or they need it next week, or the week after. And it takes, you know, a lot of the paper mills are even been shut down in the United States. So we're bringing stuff in from South Korea as far as paper is concerned, and it takes 45 to 60 days to get it here. And if these companies are not planning ahead enough, which they did during COVID, but it was almost too late at that point. Yeah. But yeah, we can't get the stuff that quick, and we can't order. And have a big inventory on our floors costs a lot of money. So it's, supply chain happens there as well. So, but specifically on your paper that you recently wrote about the military, using the military industries to actually transform the economy of the United States with high tech and all of that. That's something that I think everybody would be interested in. Maybe you could explain some of that.
Sure, Terry. Well, first of all, the Department of Defense is the largest employer in the world. The U.S. Department of Defense, largest employer in the world, as well as the largest employer in the United States, obviously.
Yeah, and then Walmart's second.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and you know, the difference is that you do have a tremendous reservoir of machine tool capability and related areas. You have an incredibly skilled workforce. When you look at the entire defense system, what they call the defense industrial base as a whole. So the Pentagon, we've got 1.3 million men and women under arms in the services, not counting reserves and National Guard, 1.3 million. We've got 750,000 civilian employees, that's civil service employees of the Pentagon, 750,000. They're botanists, they're engineers, they may be placed someplace on the other side of the world, but they're employees of the Department of Defense, 750,000. But then you look at the defense aerospace sector. That's the big six. That's Lockheed and Raytheon and Boeing and so on and so forth. That's 900,000 employees. You know, again, most of them highly skilled. Out of that, 460,000 are specifically working on defense and national security contracts. You know, the last figures, 2022 figures. And then you have the subcontractors, you know, tier 2, 3, 4 on down. And there you've got 1.2 million employees. I mean, these are, calling them employees doesn't capture it, because these are, again, machinists. They represent a third to a half of all of the skilled machinists and similar skilled crafts in the United States is there. And those companies and those that workforce, they can turn on a dime. I mean, they're used to handling, problem solving, unique product that has to be turned out, you know, basically at a moment's notice. They have to work with, you know, materials, you know, advanced materials, composites, etc. This is there's an enormous flexibility. I want to make that point. There's enormous flexibility. These men and women in these both. Haven't even talked about the defense. Our men and women under arms, which also are highly skilled. They're trained, as machinists, as mechanics, as healthcare specialists, etc. They have a much higher skill level than the U.S. workforce is as it's in totality.
Yeah.
So you talk about shifting a portion of that workforce and reapplying it to large-scale infrastructure projects, energy, for example, the building out of nuclear power plants on a large scale, for example. This is where the workforce exists. But also you're at the same time, you're addressing the fundamental national security of our country. Our fundamental national security is our industrial base, our economic base. It's our livelihood. It secures our families, our communities. It also provides the surge capacity that is what you require in times of war, when you actually have to fight a war, when you actually have to defend your nation. And that surge capacity doesn't exist now, not because it doesn't exist in the siloed defense sector, but because it doesn't exist in the broader economy. So there's nothing to call up in the broader economy into the productive process in the short term.
So it's almost like what Franklin Roosevelt did, moving the auto industry into military production. We're looking at the reverse in a way.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And we have an advantage because we do have, coming out of the 30s and so forth, we had a lack of skills in many areas, because people have been laid off, many for decades. Now we have this skill in this area. We have these skills. Yes, it's a kind of a reversal, which we have to take advantage of. And we want to get this across to President Trump. Something like this along these lines is going to be required for the United States. And only a Trump presidency could institute such a rebuild of the U.S. heavy industry, industrial manufacturing, and the rest.
That's probably one of the reasons why everybody on the left and even on the right is trying to keep him from becoming president, because the oligarchy that runs everything don't want this. And they want the war machine to keep going, because that's where they make their real profits. So yeah, that's
they're in a real fix, because that financial oligarchy, has been pulling down the economy of the transatlantic region. Europe and the United States, as well as Japan, so forth.
Yeah,
pulling it down. The green agenda, the Malthusian policies, the deindustrialization. The financialization, right? The money was sucked out by Wall Street. Oh, we don't have to reinvest in our plant and equipment and workforce. Hey, we can skim it off as profits, as a revenue stream.
exactly.
That's what financialization is, right? You're no longer reinvesting capital-wise. You're looking at it merely from the standpoint of revenue streams. Okay, so they've been doing that. That's what's been underway, as you know, for some time, for decades. Oh, well, now China's rising, Russia's rising, and the financial oligarchy in the West is saying, they're coming on, and they're going to supplant us. So we've got to defeat them now. And then they turn around and say, well, where are the weapons? Where are the guns? Where are the whatever? And it doesn't exist because they hollowed us out. But they're traitors. I mean, they've betrayed our country, and they're betraying humanity in this insane game of geopolitics. So it's really up to us to get our act together. And if we get our act together, well, then from a position of strength, we can negotiate with Russia, China, anybody, as Trump has said, we can deal with sovereign nations as sovereign nations, and make a deal, as Trump likes to say. But it's a dangerous situation, because they're desperate to get a showdown with Russia and China now, because they see themselves flailing and failing, and they see their what they view as their threats and they're trying to make us think there are threats coming on. So,
yeah, they blew up the pipeline. I mean, Seymour Hersh came out with his article recently. I mean, a lot of people knew that the U.S. did it. I mean, even Biden even said last year, "Well, don't worry, we will take it out one way or another." And they're like, "Hmm." I mean, he said it in his own words. So now everybody said, "Well, Russia did it." What? I mean, Russia immediately started to try and rebuild the pipeline as soon as it was blown up, and Seymour Hersh, put out exactly how they did it. And that's very interesting, but that's an act of war. I mean, you don't go in and just blow up someone's infrastructure. That is an act of war. And, we're pushing Russia up against the wall. I mean, there's a point where they may just say, well, we got nothing to lose. If they're going to just try to destroy us, we're going to take the whole world down with us, as a threat maybe. But I mean, I understand this is probably the most dangerous point we've been in the world with the nuclear war threat over our heads. I mean, it's scary as hell.
And they've developed hypersonics. They can deliver nuclear warheads or not nuclear, depending on what, the purpose. And China's done the same.
Yeah.
So we're being eclipsed in that regard, in the short term anyway.
Yeah.
Which is all the more reason we've got to bring Trump in now to negotiate with Russia, which Trump has stated on several occasions he's ready and willing to do.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably the one man that President Putin and his people, his team, would be willing to trust.
Yeah, exactly.
Verify, but trust. And I think this is incredibly important because only the United States can provide the security guarantees that Russia requires as a sovereign nation. We wouldn't want the Russian army or the Chinese army in Mexico,
right?
But we pushed our NATO forces right up into Ukraine.
Yeah, or even the Cuban Missile Crisis, back in the 60s. I mean, the United States government went nuts over that. I mean, so they ought to know what they're doing. They ought to know that they're pushing Russia up against the wall. This is crazy.
So Trump is the one person who can deliver those guarantees on behalf of the United States.
Yeah.
And he's the one person that can do that by cutting the British leash.
Mm-hmm.
Our shorthand way of getting at the financial oligarchy. Biden is the Biden collective. I mean, it's not even Biden; he's an avatar.
Yeah.
The Biden collective, is totally, in the pocket of the Council on Foreign Relations, but more profoundly, the CIS, the plethora of these institutes and think tanks, etc., centered around the city of London,
mm-hmm.
who promote a geopolitical view, which is a British Empire view. It's what George H.W. Bush called the the new global order.
Yeah, New World Order. He even called it the New World Order.
Yeah. Yes. And so that's what Trump said. I'm getting rid of. I'm going to take apart the deep state. We're going to do this. And of course, he waged a fight in his first administration to that end,
mm-hmm.
Fighting all the time against everything that was being thrown against him. And so he's proven he's the one person coming back in that could cut that leash to the deep state and the city of London and assert a U.S. sovereign national policy.
Mm-hmm. Well, he even said he wanted to take out NATO as well. He said, we don't need it anymore, and we don't. I mean, look, that's part of the reason why we're in this mess to begin with, is that NATO has been pushing, surrounding. Somebody mentioned that we just built 4 more army bases in the Philippines. I don't know if that's true or not, but I just heard.
We have over 750 military installations around the world, 750. Yeah. There is not an accurate count. The last figure that was released by the Department of Defense to the Congress was in 2018,
mm-hmm.
Unless I missed something. But Congress doesn't even know. Back at that time, suddenly, you may vaguely remember this story. we learned that a U.S. soldier had been killed in Kenya, I believe it was.
Hmm.
Well, then looking into that, they found out that we had 9,000 soldiers in Kenya. I mean, this is, Congress was totally unaware there was even a military base there. But this is the kind, if I may have my figures a little off of there, but, this is the kind of thing. It's, because of this deep state apparatus and so forth, we're not even on top as citizens right now of what we're into, how deeply we're into this mess.
Yeah, my son was in the Army. He was stationed in Fort Hood down in Texas here, and he just got out in October, and they kept begging him to stay in because it was only 23, but he was actually running one of those satellite trucks that was aiming the dish up to the different satellites, and he was encrypting all of the different communication devices to each of the soldiers' helmets. He was training people. And he even said, "Dad, you wouldn't believe how many stupid people are in the Army." And he said, "The higher the rank, the dumber they are." And he finally got out, but they came to him the last day and they said, "We have an offer you can't refuse." And he goes, "All right, what is it?" And they said, "We need you in the Congo." Congo? I didn't know we were in the Congo either. Can you believe that? I mean, he was like, "I'm not going to the Congo."
Yeah.
But it's like he gave me a little. I mean, he's not supposed to talk about stuff because he has a high security clearance. But he just said, I love the job, but I couldn't deal with the hierarchy and the bureaucracy, I guess you could call it. And so he just had to get out. But yeah, he said that they're having a hard time keeping people in the military. And one of the reasons why they didn't want to give free college, because that's one of the only incentives the Army has left to get people to come in to the military, is the free college. I mean, that's why my son went in. So if they get rid of that, I think the military even mentioned that. The Pentagon said, "Oh, you can't give away free college." So I mean, it's insane. It's crazy. So yeah.
we can turn this around, but we as the American people, it's on our shoulders.
Mhm.
We've got to step forward. I mean, I've done. I was at some Republican Party meetings this last week here in the Houston area.
Mhm.
We had a meeting. Troy Nehls, Congressman Troy Nehls, down here in the 22nd Congressional District, just south of Houston. He's put out a statement calling on Biden to bring Trump in, that he's got to get on the phone with Trump and bring him in to negotiate this. We need to get a lot. I'm talking to the people that are going to be watching this podcast. We've got to get a lot more people ringing up their congressman and saying, "Hey, you've got to join Troy Nehls." That's N-E-H-L, Troy, N-E-H-L-S, Troy Nehls, and calling for Trump to be brought in to negotiate an end to this Ukraine conflict before it just blows to hell. And that's an example of what can be done right now, not waiting to 2024, not waiting for the ship to come in, but acting right now at this moment in an effective way,
You're going to have a lot of people in the Democratic Party screaming bloody murder. Oh my God. But yeah, you're right. He's probably the only one that could do it.
And as you know, we've got some people that at least used to be on the Democratic side, the former congresswoman from Hawaii.
Oh yeah, Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah.
Yeah. You've got some of these congressmen and congresswomen, who are breaking from this, Charlie Schumer, Biden collective mindset.
Yeah.
Because they can see the writing on the wall. They can see it in terms of the declining wage levels and conditions of life, the fentanyl crisis, in their home districts. They can see it on the border. Here we are, we're worrying about balloons, but what about the border? So I think there's we've got some Democrats here in Texas, that are making a stink about the ineffectiveness of Biden, the Biden cabinet on the border. So I think we can assemble, really a broad and growing coalition, not on some single issue, but on, making America great again.
Yeah. Well, I know they've got this Rage Against the War Machine. That it's a rally coming up tomorrow, I believe, on the 19th in Washington, D.C. in front of the Lincoln Memorial. And I think Tulsi Gabbard's going to be speaking there. Chris Hedges. There's going to be a lot of good people. And they were saying, look, this is not a partisan issue anymore. This is an existential issue. And we all need to come together, doesn't matter what race, doesn't matter what party, doesn't matter all these stupid issues about wokeness and gender identity and all this other garbage needs to just be, put to the side. We'll worry about that stuff later. Let's survive and prevent us from getting into World War III right now. And they're already having a fight about it. Oh, we can't be to that because this person said that one. So this person said, and these people aren't interested in stopping the war. Otherwise, they would just join this thing and worry about all these other stupid little issues later. But I think the rally is going to be pretty big. They got some good people that are going to be there. And I wish I could go, but, I can't do that.
Well, I think, I'm not going to try to make too much out of this rally per se, but the process that you're talking about, that we're talking about here, Terry. I mean, this is the process by which the actual original Republican Party was built.
Yeah.
By Lincoln and others around him, who decided that they had to put together again what John Quincy Adams and others had represented. And you can read Lincoln on this himself and his work, from when he was in Congress one term, trying to stop the Mexican-American War, and otherwise, an infrastructure and a national bank. So that broad coalition of the working Americans, working families, farmers, our industrialists. It's not ideological, as you were saying.
Yeah, I just watched something last night about the Helios, I think is the company that's working on the fusion energy. Helion, and they have an incredible, this is a really interesting technology that they have developed, and they're able, the guy that was even interviewing them said it's routine now that they're able to get more power out than they're putting in. And the interesting thing about this technology is they are taking this fusion energy and going directly into electricity grid. They're not going to the heating the water. They're not running the turbines. They're going direct, which is much more efficient. So this technology is a lot more advanced. They said that by 2014, they're going to have a working system that they can generate power and put it right back on the grid. This is very exciting, and nothing in the media about it, of course. This is,
I wouldn't put all your chips on Helion. I mean, of course they're promoting themselves and they've got a lot of big money behind them, but good. God bless them. There's other initiatives simultaneous. We all know about the Lawrence Livermore National Lab breakthrough last December. A net gain of energy. Not just more out than in, but net gain. And so, we're on the verge of a fusion revolution, and we've got 35 or more companies privately out there working on it in conjunction in one way or another with the Department of Energy, with our labs like the like Lawrence Livermore or the Idaho National Lab. So, we got to move with nuclear. We're going to need at least 200 gigawatts of nuclear power just to rebuild our manufacturing capacity. I mean, we got brownouts and blackouts, so you can't just start throwing up a bunch of, steel mills and aluminum mills and heavy industry and so forth without any electricity to run it. So if you look at it total, we're going to need about 800 to 1,000 gigawatts of nuclear power. But in building that out and building out the supply chains for that, we'll be building out the wherewithal, with which then we can make the transition to fusion. We'll be building the bridge.
Exactly.
So that's absolutely, I agree with you. That's where we got to go.
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I have to wind it down here shortly,
Good.
but I would love for us to set up maybe a series of interviews where we can go through a lot of these different, aspects of what you're talking about, maybe in more detail, how we're going to do it. So maybe we can do something once a week. I don't know if you're able to do that, but I'd like to try and work on something.
Once every week, once every 2 weeks, something. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm happy to do it, Terry. Yeah.
Okay, let's discuss that then. So, well, this is Terry Allen, and this is Real Progress News. We're trying to get this information out, and I don't care what party you're in. I don't care, what stupid issues people are into right now. But these important things, that's what we got to really look at right now. And we're going to have to unite and take on this oligarchy because they're going to just get us into World War III. And that's quite frightening.
Yeah.
They don't seem to care. I don't know how they possibly think. I mean, NATO's even got plans, I understand, where they think they can win a nuclear war against Russia. It's madness. I mean, they're talking about air bursting nuclear weapons over Russia and taking all their electricity, all their electric grids, all their computer systems out, and then boom, these people are insane. I mean,
well, if you're moving in that direction, you're forcing Russia to move in that direction faster. So
yeah, exactly.
So it's go to just I encourage people.
Yeah,
to go
so
to
your website,
larouchepac.com, larouchepac.com.
Okay.
And all our materials there. If you want to read more of my in-depth economic reports and all the other reports, historical material, new work, it's there. You can go to content and you can look up by author. Anyway, there's a lot there,
Okay, and then the one last thing I want to ask about is people calling their congressmen and senators. There's a list probably somewhere for each person's, in each district. I don't know if you have that on your website, but you can get that from .gov something or other.
Yeah,
Google.
Do a search. You'll find it. You pull it up, put in your congressman's name, your senator's name, pull it right up. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Brian Lantz, really appreciate you being on the show, and we will talk shortly here. All right, take care. Have a good day.
Yeah,
all right. Okay, bye-bye.